So if you are doing qualitative, you should watch this video because it's about designing a questionnaire. So first, remember that when you are designing a questionnaire, you should state your target. Usually, when we analyze companies, we do at least two questionnaires. One for senior managers, like the CEO, the CFO, a project manager, something like that, and then for low tier employees, like maybe someone who works in the kitchen or maybe a waitress or I don't know, something like that. So make sure if you need to design two surveys, because it has two different objectives. Like if you are interviewing senior managers, you are asking more about the objectives, reasoning, why did they choose this or that. And if you are interviewing employees, it's more about trying to find how they feel, like what's their reaction about this, how do they work with this, with technology or whatever. So it has two different objectives. Also, my suggestion is to start with general questions, like make the people think like it's more like a conversation instead of a questionnaire, because questionnaire seems like if you are in jail and you are they are asking you questions. Let them talk. Like in an ideal interview, you talk like 5% of the time and the other person talks 95%. It's like more you guide the conversation. Like start a with a question like what do you do in your company, or what does your company do, I don't know, something like that. Or if you are focusing on right now, as like how are you doing through this emergency about COVID. So ask something like that, like I don't know, a general question. And then after that, like once you change the energy of the conversation, you can move into the topics that you have in your questionnaire. Like maybe after the person explain how they are surviving through COVID, ask about this, like have you implemented something about technology, or and then you can move into what you want to ask. And finally, the last thing that's my last suggestion is that you should avoid yes or no questions, because if you ask like a yes or no question, the person is going to answer only yes or no, and you don't want that. First, because the question is really biased, like you can ask it in a way that you can force them to say yes or not, and that's not good. And the second thing is that since you are doing a case study, you want to have rich data, like you want to have a lot of information. So if you narrow the questions to just answer yes or not, I think that's bad for your research. Like you don't have the data. So instead of I don't know, like you can ask, did you like the implementation of technology, this software? And that person is going to say yes or not. So instead of that, ask like, uh, how, can you describe a day, or when you, or can you describe how do you interact with the software? Can you describe a day of work? That's also a good question. And then that person is going to start with a story. At least you will have 5 minutes of that person telling you some things. And in question, when you are doing an interview, it's super important that you record the interview, because we usually forget about what we are doing, and also because you need to provide evidence in your paper about what that person said. And the best way to provide evidence about that is to use a quote. Like maybe you want to illustrate to your reader that the software implementation was an issue, had an issue in finance, and then you quote that person literally saying, we had a problem in finance when implementing the software, and that's very powerful. So that's why you need to record your interviews. Also make sure that in your questionnaire you ask the person at the beginning of, maybe this is the only yes or no question, you ask the person at the beginning of the conversation if they are okay with you recording the interview. And usually they say yes. If they say no, we can work with that and you can take notes, but usually they are okay with that. So I think that will be all for today in terms of the videos. So come to Zoom, and then we are going to work and with finishing the questionnaire today.